Well, hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. My name is Meredith Hoskin. I'm president of the City of Alameda Democratic Club, the local organization here in Alameda for the Democratic Party. Welcome to our first candidates forum of what is, again, the most important election year. And we're, heading into the June 2nd primary. So today we're going to be focusing on some of the contested county offices, starting with district attorney, and then we will move to meet some of the candidates who are running for judge positions. All right. I was told to encourage you. We have refreshments over here, water, cookies, if you feel you need a little sugar rush or hydration. But let's go ahead and get started with our two candidates for Alameda County District Attorney. I'm pleased to welcome current interim DA Ursula Jones-Dickson and then Pamela Price. So the way the format is going to work, this is a candidates forum, so it's not necessarily a debate. We're going to give the candidates an opportunity, each of you a 3-minute introduction. You don't have to use that whole time if you don't want to. My colleague Jen over here is going to be keeping time. She will hold up a sign when you have 30 seconds left. And then after the introduction, we'll have time for, unfortunately, 3 questions from one from the club and one from the audience. And we just ask, let's be respectful, let's be constructive in the questions that we're asking. This is a real opportunity for us to get a lot of information for the people who are going to be our local representatives. Okay? So I will start it off with Ursula Jones-Dickson. And this is a mic for we have some people joining remotely. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, hopefully folks online can hear me. I'm Ursula Jones-Dickson, Alameda County District Attorney. Very happy to be here. Thank you for the invite. Give you a little information about me. I was a district attorney for about 15 years before I was appointed to the bench by Governor Brown. I spent 11 years on the Alameda County Superior Court and then came here to this position, appointed to this position after the recall. I have been working diligently to make sure that the district attorney's office is in a position where we can do the work we need to do on behalf of victims of crime. I'll tell you a little bit about what the platform is for me. It's always about victims of crime. This is everything we do. The DA's office does not exist unless victims of crime are at the center of everything that we do. And it has been my experience and my pleasure and my privilege to be able to talk to victims across the county and to explain to them that the Alameda County District Attorney's Office has their back. In addition to that, what we are trying to do is make sure that our process is fair and impartial. That's what judges do. That's what I bring to the table because that's the job I did before. In addition to that, I got a bunch of women sitting here who are in my command staff. And I'm sorry, no disrespect to the men, but I love how women do their jobs. And so we are absolutely in a position to work very hard on behalf of people in the community. I just would have you know that when we walked into the office, there were lots of things that we felt we needed to fix. And we've been working diligently, sometimes 15 hours a day, to do that. The reason I think that's important to say is because this job is not only just someone who is a lawyer. It's someone who is running an organization of over 400 employees. And I need to be a steward of your tax dollars while I do that. And I need to be a good steward of the community as I do that. And so as we work forward and move forward toward June 2nd, the goal for me is to have you elect me as your district attorney. You've seen the job I'm doing. You've seen how things have leveled out. My expectation is that continues, and I appreciate your support ahead of time. Thanks in advance.
Okay. All right.
Good evening. I'm Pamela Price, and I'm running for re-election to Alameda County District Attorney because I am a drum major for justice. My campaign says that justice is in my DNA, which it is. I'm honored to be here tonight. This is Women's History Month, and I've been standing up for gender justice since 1977, when I fought against rape and sexual assault and sexual harassment at Yale on behalf of women. I'm proud to say that when I was your district attorney, I promoted many women, including 2 of the women that are here tonight. You know, my top priority is keeping people safe in this county and making sure that justice is fair. The events of this week have affirmed my commitment to run. It's gun violence in Oakland that we saw, a mass shooting, which is extremely tragic. And my office was committed to fighting gun violence. We got a grant, $5.5 million grant for gun violence restraining orders. We convened 2 gun violence roundtables, and we published a report, a comprehensive report on gun violence, a public epidemic, right before I left the office. That work needs to continue. Additionally, the immigration crisis that we see nationally, it is coming here. It is here. I talked to a man tonight in Chinatown who said that he witnessed a kidnapping off the street. I've seen, and we know the reports of the surge in immigration arrest. We need a DA who has the experience and the moral courage to stand up to Donald Trump and to hold law enforcement accountable. I believe that justice should be accomplished without fear, favoritism, or hesitation. Under my administration, I was proud to work with your city attorney's office. I was extremely proud when they received an award for protecting the tenants at the Barnhill Marina, 50 homes. They got an award, and that work started in collaboration with my administration and with my permission under the Constitution. And so I know how to collaborate with local authorities, and I'm also very skilled in running an office. That is the job of the district attorney, is to manage the administration of justice, to set the policies. It goes beyond that. People often misunderstood that the DA is the one who's charging, the DA is the one who's in the courtroom. That is not the job of the district attorney. It is to be a leader, to stand for justice, and as my campaign says, justice is in my DNA. I've been fighting for it since I was a child. We have a racial justice problem. My priority is to address the mental health crisis that we have in Alameda County, as well as creating more remedies for victims. My relationship with victims transcends a single a day in court. I spent 30 years representing victims, families, men, women, and children, holding their hands in the worst time of their lives for years. I am a survivor of domestic violence and sexual assault, so I know very well the needs of victims, and I know I'm not having a time. Okay. Right. Thank you.
All right, now we'll go into the questions. So one from me, and again, we dug to ask the hard questions. According to the East Bay Times, so this is for Ursula Jones-Dickson, MDA. According to the East Bay Times, your office sought to try 6 juveniles as adults during your first year in office, compared with 3 similar cases that had happened a decade before. What is your rationale for pursuing adult prosecution in these cases, and how does it fit within your overall approach to juvenile justice?
So first and foremost, the DA does not seek to try individuals as adults. Let me just give you a little history. I was a judge for 11 years. 10 of those years I was in a juvenile court, and I was presiding judge of juvenile during that period as well. What this office has asked of the judges, I'm asking my old colleagues to do as their job, that is to evaluate specifically in murder cases whether or not a child who is charged with a homicide is able to be rehabilitated in the juvenile system. So we don't charge individuals who are under the age of 18 as adults. What we ask the court to do is to take a look at those children, and we ask for what's called a social studies report. Now let me tell you why I think that's important. I think we always forget to talk about the fact that there's a victim on the other side of this. So every parent that I've had to sit down with and have a conversation with them about their child being murdered, their husband being murdered, their daughter being murdered, their friends being murdered, I would like at least to be able to provide to them information as to why we are moving the way we are with this case. Not one case since I've been sitting in the seat, which has been over a year, has gone to adult court. That's different. What we are asking for is absolutely for the court to weigh in on whether or not these are cases where we should try to take a look at whether or not this is a child who can go to adult court and be in adult court or be rehabilitated in the juvenile courts. And let me just say one other thing. That process is extensive. It requires that the probation department do a full-on investigation. It requires that a report be prepared and provided to both probation, to the DA's office, to the public defender's office, and to the judge. It also allows us to ask expert witnesses to come in, and there are 5 criteria by which we're evaluating a child. If the child does not meet that criteria, we're not even getting to the next step. So in a whole year, nobody's gone to adult court. So yes, I think it is important that we have that input, that we just don't say just because someone who's 17 years, 11 months, and 2 days has killed 2 people, they belong in the juvenile system. Sometimes it requires someone else to weigh in on that. Can I give this to Ms. Price?
These are catered questions, if that's okay. All right, so now we'll go to Pamela Price with a question, and then we'll go back, and I'll open it up for people with questions for Madam D.A. Jones-Dickson, okay? I think this is a question on a lot of people's mind. Although this club formally opposed your recall in 2024, 65% of Alameda voters supported it. What would you do differently if elected again, and why should voters reconsider?
I'm asking voters to reconsider because now it's an election. There is a candidate, and you get a choice. When you have a recall, you don't have a choice. You have an attack, which was funded by a billionaire and millionaires in this community, and you have disinformation that was spread throughout the community. When you have an election, now you have a choice, and you get to see what were the policies under my administration and what are the differences under the interim administration. What I would do differently is on my website, we have established we've done a series of frequently asked questions. One of the things that I would do differently is to include actual victims with actual cases, live cases in our Victims Advisory Commission. We created a Victims Advisory Commission, and we made a decision that we did not want to bring in people who were still going through the trauma of the prosecution process. Obviously, we need to do that differently, and we need to create a structure for those voices because they felt that they were excluded, even though we had other victims, and I've been endorsed by many other victims, most significantly Lorraine Taylor, who lost her 2 sons to murder in Oakland. I would also, we will also cater to the media more. In our first 90 days, we were not in a position to allow the media to come into every space, which was what they demanded and wanted to know everything. And so they created this aura that somehow things in the office were falling apart from the beginning. All of you witnessed that. I was barely unpacking my boxes when the San Francisco Chronicle and the East Bay Times and everybody was like, oh, what's she doing? I saw a statement the other day that said I got rid of 20 people, experienced prosecutors, and the same story where the head of the prosecutors union pointed out that I couldn't get rid of anybody because the prosecutors have just cause. So there was so much disinformation. Another case was the Kevin Nishida case, which hit the media early. They said I dropped life without the possibility of parole. Well, when you look at the charging documents, that charge was never there. So what we have to do going into the office, knowing that the media, unfortunately, is going to spread misinformation and that there are people in our community who profit by disinformation. The other issue that folks realize or should appreciate, when we were on the ballot, it was the most disastrous election of our lifetime. We elected Donald Trump as our president. In my community, we elected a gentleman who has been a disgrace on the city council. And so you have to put it in context. Now we have an election. The mayor of Oakland is not on the ballot for recall. And so I think that I will have a fair opportunity, and that's what I deserve, is a fair opportunity to show you. You all know that I've represented Alameda for years now on the Central Committee and as your district attorney, again, working with your city attorney in collaboration from day one. So you all know that I work collaboratively. It's important for us to get that message out across the county. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone with a question for Madam DA Jones-Dickson?
Thank you. This question is for both candidates. Governor Newsom has imposed a moratorium on the death penalty, but that can change with the next election. So my question for both of you is, if a case comes up that's death penalty eligible, would you go for the death penalty?
Yeah, we are in very perilous times. Not only do we have Donald Trump at the top of the ticket or the head of our government, we do have a very real possibility that we will have a Republican governor, or someone who's Republican light even, who does not believe and adhere to the platform of the Democratic Party or the values of this community. Over 70% of us, almost 80% of us, oppose the death penalty every time that we have voted on that. And I was cognizant of that when I ran in 2022, and I continue to be aware of the values of this community and to reflect that. I will not do a death penalty case. That's not what Alameda County believes. We believe, and the Democratic Party platform says that we oppose the death penalty. It says that we are in favor of restorative justice, that we are looking for people to have second chances, which you don't get when you put somebody to death. It is true that you can punish them and sentence them to life without the possibility of parole, which is death by incarceration. I will not say that that is off the table. And in fact, in my administration, we did have some LWOP cases. When we were ordered to review the death penalty cases by Judge Chabria of the federal court, we looked at those cases, and some of them we negotiated LWOP. We did not release people that we felt were a danger to public safety. However, the court, in its wisdom, in the Northern District, has determined that initially because of the logistical problems with carrying out the death penalty, they didn't want death penalty cases. The judge called me and said, I want you to play ball like all the other counties. You need to look at these death penalty cases. When we looked, we found a 30-year pattern of prosecutorial misconduct. We found that prosecutors in this office were excluding black women in particular, black people, and Jewish people, and that was a practice that extended throughout the death penalty cases, and we had to look at, we were in the process, the concern was how far did it go? Because those lawyers didn't just do death penalty cases. Those lawyers didn't operate in a vacuum. They operated with the consent and the guidance of the highest officers of that office, and they trained many of the lawyers in that office. And so there was a clear problem and a pattern that needed to be addressed and still needs to be addressed. Thank you.
So there are many cases in this county that we've charged in the last year with special circumstances, which means life without the possibility of parole. One of them right here in this city that I think is one of the most heinous cases I've seen in many, many years. Yet we're not asking for the death penalty. And one of those reasons is because I think it's futile. Like, honestly, the governor has already said that this is a state that is not adhering to death penalty cases. The second piece is, I'll tell you what I've seen since I've been here. I'm really tired of victims feeling like we keep pulling the wool from over their eyes and the rug from under their feet. That they have been told over and over and over again, this is what's going to happen to this person who harmed my loved one, and we keep moving the goalpost. I have to have those conversations with victims. Those are hard conversations to have. Last Friday, I spent 3 hours with 3 separate victims' families who had lost their loved ones to gun violence, each of them women of color, each of them lost a son. Those are hard conversations to have. So my answer to your question is, we've been here a year, we haven't charged anything as a death penalty case, nor are we seeking to. Do I believe that we should charge cases with enhancements that include life without the possibility of parole? For some cases, absolutely. I don't consider that death by incarceration. I consider it the penalty for killing 5 people in your home. So that's my position.
Is it for both candidates or?
Either or can explain.
Okay. Yeah.
So I guess addressing to Pamela Price first, you mentioned that you would like to work with advocates and family members if you're elected to real life family members who lost loved ones if you're reelected. I would like for you to explain to the committee on your approach when you did meet with families and advocates of murder victims, who has a family support advocate that you, early on in your election, you approached for support. And then when y'all met, it was a meeting that took place where they want to gain your support and work with you, but how you so if you can explain to the committee your approach and how you handled that situation with the families that you did meet early on at the church. If you can explain to the committee to get your approach and how did you handle those families when they wanted to understand what was your, what was your background, what's your approach, and how could they be a support, and how you kind of turned it around negativity to them. I don't think the committee understands what happened. And it just overall, whenever you're going to work with victim support, are they going to be the priority? Trump is not in Alameda County. Oakland and Alameda County has major issues on their own to deal with. So it's kind of like a twofold kind of question. How are you going to deal with families, real life families, if you are brought back in making Alameda County the priority and the victims the priority versus Trump?
Thank you. Yes, sir, I think you misunderstood. What I said was I stood with and sat with victims for 30 years, 4 years. I represented the families of the young men who witnessed the murder of Vernon Edens on the steps of the school when he was 13 years old. I represented women who were sexually assaulted while they were working inside the California Department of Corrections. I represented many people. I represented sexual assault victims. I represented homicide victims, survivors. So that was my job. That was my life. That's how I made my living for 30 years. And it went for, let me finish, sir. I'm sorry. You need to let me finish, please. Yeah. I think the meeting that you're referring to was attended to and organized by my victim witness advocates. I supervised the Victim Witness Advocates Division, which had approximately 20-some people when we got there. I hired an additional 17 victims advocates. And so my priority was making sure that we expanded victim services for victims, that we streamlined the process so that people weren't left by themselves to figure out what the resources were. We cleaned up the backlog of Alameda County that Alameda County had over 1 year of not providing services to victims and not processing claims. And we brought that down to under 60 days in the time that I was there. So I will say that my approach to victims has always been to be compassionate, to be standing for them. I met with many victims' families while I was the district attorney. I met with the families of Tuan Le, the officer who was killed. I met with the family of Jasper Wu before they went to the join the recall movement. I met with many families during my time. I stood with the family whose daughter was murdered and her body was brutally found on the banks of Alameda, on the shores. And that, to me, was the most heinous crime, where we couldn't find her head or her hands. That was heinous to me. And I met with her family and I supervised a successful prosecution of that case. I made sure that victims were at the center of what my prosecutors did, and there was a lot of training that needed to be done in the area of human trafficking, domestic violence, to have the prosecutors have the kind of empathy that I've had over 30 years. Thank you.
So, he said did you say both or either or? Both? Okay.
Yeah, just your approach to.
Sure. So I think it's important to know that the reason I'm in this job is because victims thought they weren't being served. I think there was a choice before, whether we liked the way things were going or we didn't. And so for me, what I gathered from information, speaking with people, reading the newspaper, my own experiences, was that victims felt like they were not being served. And I left the bench for that. I left my pension for that, because I think it's important enough that we have a conversation yet again about the constitutional rights for victims. Like, this is in the California State Constitution. It's not foreign. It's not new. We just stopped talking about it. And so my approach to victims is you sit down, talk to them about the fact that they're at the center of what we do, that we absolutely make sure that the process is as fair as possible, but it is our job to advocate on behalf of victims of crime. It's not my job to advocate on behalf of the defendant, because the defendant has an attorney. It's my job to make sure the process is fair and to advocate on behalf of victims.
Would you each like to do a 1-minute closing? Okay, we're going to have them each do a 1-minute closing. If people have additional questions, we'll circulate contact information after this, and you can reach out via email.
Sure.
So as I indicated, my relationship with victims goes beyond a court date and a fleeting connection. One of the things that we did in Alameda County under my leadership is we created the Victims Advisory Commission, in which we did listen to the voices of those who have been through the process, who have lost loved ones, who have insights on how they were treated by the office and what we could do to improve that. In our first gathering, our second annual gathering, where we brought all the staff together, we brought in the founder of one of the premier human trafficking organizations in Alameda County, for her to share with the prosecutors what her experience was and what she thought we could do to improve victim services. So this concept that a victim, a survivor herself of sexual assault, sexual harassment, and domestic violence would not care about victims was something that was clearly disinformation in this community. And I think that people should look at my background, should look at the work that I've done, and talk to some of the victims that we did serve. Sorry. Thank you.
So thank you again for your time tonight and your attention. I just want to remind everybody that this is an election. And so you have a choice. And other people have a choice as well. And I want to talk to you a little bit about the people who have chosen me. I'm supported by every mayor in this county, all 14 cities. I'm supported by 4 of the 5 members of the Board of Supervisors. I'm supported by the Alameda County Building Trades, Joint Council 7 Teamsters, SEIU 10-1, and the Alameda County Labor Council. I'm supported by state senators, state assembly members, and all of those people I've sat down to have a conversation with. I'm telling you that these times are difficult enough federally. We need the ground under our feet to be stable. You need to know what to expect from your district attorney, and you need me to do the job I'm required to do by way of mandate. Everything else is helpful. We can have conversations about assisting other people, but my job is to serve victims. The proof is in the pudding.
Thank you both so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, you're welcome to stay and hear from the judge candidates. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you. So next up, we are going to have the opportunity this primary to elect 2 Alameda County Superior Court judges. So we're going to start with the 2 candidates who are running for office number 13. And as far as I know, there's no like regional distinction or anything to the office, correct? It's just a number? Okay. So this is Cabral Bonner and Michael Johnson. All right, so we're going to start off with 2-minute introductions each, and then we have time for 2 questions with 1 minute 30-second responses. Does that sound okay? Okay. I'll start with Cabral. Okay.
It's live, but there's some people tuning in. I'm
All right.
curious who the people who are
Thank
tuning
you.
in.
My name is Cabral Bonner. I appreciate you all coming out here and giving us
I
the
don't care about
opportunity
the
to speak with
judicial.
you and to explain a little bit about our backgrounds and why we're be qualified and to be Supreme Court judges. I grew up here in Oakland. I went to Stanford University for undergrad. I went to Stanford Law School. For the last 20 years, I've been a civil rights attorney. I've represented people whose rights have been violated, and a lot of those cases have involved rights that we as a society hold dear, that we as a society have decided need special protection. For right now, as we speak, I represent an individual who was incarcerated for 12 years for a crime he didn't commit because the police officer who investigated that crime determined that this guy was the responsible party and was going to make sure that the evidence proved it. Right now in our country, I feel like our civil rights and our constitutional rights are under attack. And we need judges because all of the decisions that you see get to the Supreme Court, they started in a trial court. And they started with trial courts making decisions about things that may seem mundane but have ripple effects throughout all of our lives. We need judges who are willing to stand up against corporations, stand up against the government, and say our rights are here to protect us. And as a judge, I recognize that. Doesn't mean that every plaintiff that comes before me is going to win, but it means that the lens that I will see the cases through is the lens of a person who has spent 20 years fighting for individuals, fighting for the rights of individuals, the rights that are so precious to us, the rights that make us Americans. These are the things that we hold dear, the right to First Amendment, right to free speech. That's under attack. The right to not be arrested without to civil rights around the Fourth Amendment, the right to be free of search and seizure. That's under attack. We have cops who believe they can do whatever they want because of things like qualified immunity. And we need judges who are willing to stand up for that, and that's what I will be. Okay, where's the timer? Go. All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm Michael Johnson, also running for seat number 13. You know, probably about 35 years ago, my great-uncle, who was a master carpenter in the shipyards and in downtown Oakland, said, you should try to live in Oakland. So I did. I listened to him. I came after law school, and I've enjoyed it, and I've lived here ever since. I raised my child here. I got married here. I've practiced here. One of the first things I did was I went and did work with John Burris, a civil rights attorney. He endorses me in this current campaign, and I learned a lot from him about constitutional civil rights. I also followed the saying of Charles Houston, who said, a lawyer has to be a social engineer and not a parasite on society. So what did I do? I joined Charles Houston Bar Association. I joined them on a leadership level, and I gave back to the community. And I still give back to the community for over 35 years, helping underprivileged individuals get access to justice. I also joined Alameda County Bar Association and 100 Black Men of the Bay Area. Again, communities that give back to the community, giving impoverished folks, giving underrepresented folks access to justice. But beyond that, the last 7 years, I've been a temporary judge in Alameda County Superior Court. And I've been appointed and vetted and reaffirmed for the past 7 years by the presiding judge. I hear various traffic matters and other matters, trials every day. And so after being a pro tem judge for so long, I see people from the community every day, and I protect their rights every day. I'm proud to be endorsed by many electeds, various mayors, 3 of the 5 board of supervisors, various unions, and various organizations. And I will bring that information and that representation and that experience to me as a Superior Court judge. Thank you.
All right, first question for both candidates. As we think about, we're a Democratic Party organization, thinking about the pillars of criminal justice, how do you approach decisions around bail, sentencing, and alternatives to incarceration while balancing public safety and fairness? And you'll each have 2 minutes, or minute 30 to answer? Minute 30 to answer.
Well, this is a very important question, and I think that the answer is going to be obviously very fact-specific. It's going to depend on the circumstances. But there are lots of things that you can do to understand whether or not a person is going to be a threat or whether or not it's going to be important to give them opportunity to rehabilitate. And in my practice, though I don't do a lot of criminal law, I have seen firsthand how looking at a way for a young person who has maybe made a mistake, seeing how they can rehabilitate their lives is the right outcome from the perspective of criminal justice. I represented an individual in the first criminal cases I had, and he was being tried for a felony burglary, which is when you break in, enter, and you try to create a felony inside. And I recognized that that was the wrong charge, but the DA was charging him nonetheless. I was in a preliminary hearing. That's where the DA has to put sufficient evidence up so that the court can determine that there's going to be held over for a felony. I cross-examined the victim, and the victim admitted that when the person entered the room, they were just looking for their wallet. I was able to get this young man get his sentence knocked down from a felony to 2 misdemeanors. And he did the misdemeanors, and he pled guilty to those because that was the right crime. That was the right charge for what he did. He was able to, because he didn't get convicted of a felony, he was able to go on to get a high-paying union job for PG&E. He then, when his brother died, unfortunately, he adopted his brother's child. He was able to have, and is still having, a productive life because the crime he did and what he was charged with matched the crime, and that's the approach that I would be taking, is looking at ways to rehabilitate, if that's possible, so that we don't have people doing needless time. Thank you. Can you repeat the question again, please?
Yes, absolutely. How do you approach decisions around bail, sentencing, and alternatives to incarceration like rehabilitation while balancing public safety and fairness?
Sure, thank you. So as a temporary judge, I don't deal with felonies or crimes of that nature, but I tell you what I do deal with as far as infractions go, and I have discretion based upon the facts of a specific case to either put in an alternative program or reduce it to a lesser charge. So what I do and what judges do is look at the case before them, because every single case is different. Every fact scenario is different. What I do is look at the particular defendant, look at any type of past infractions, look at whether they will be benefited from a particular alternative program that's available to them under the law. And based upon all the facts that I get and my understanding of the law, I determine whether or not that alternative program would be beneficial for that individual defendant and for society. So when I am hopefully a Superior Court judge full-time, I will have more discretion when it comes to heavier sentencing or heavier crimes. But The analysis is the same. You look at case-by-case facts. You look at the discretion that you have based upon the programs that are alternative to extreme sentencing or further sentencing, and then you make your decision accordingly. Thank you.
Hi, you both made it very difficult for me to choose who to vote for. I really appreciate both of you coming and spending the time here. I'm a former legal research attorney for the Superior Court and am intimately familiar with what it's like to work with judges in the Superior Court. Also have heard that the caseload is crushing. And so I'd love to hear from you about what your perspective is and how to promote your own judicial philosophy while facing an avalanche of the caseload.
Should we start with Michael first? Yeah.
That's a great question. Thank you. What was your first name? Wyatt. Hi, Wyatt. That's a great question. You know, one of the biggest issues facing the court is budget. And as you know, that crushes down from the top to the bottom. It has to do with staff, it has to do with availability of resources, et cetera, which then translate to a higher caseload for the individual bench officer. I'm used to, in my own personal practice as a lawyer and then as a pro tem judge, a high caseload, both video on video and actual in the courtroom. So my philosophy is to treat everyone with dignity and respect, to actually see them and understand that they are a person with real life experiences, and I want to make sure that they have the opportunity to be heard and I can move the matter along with all the other folks that are in the courtroom. But at the same point in time, and my court clerk will tell you this, it's a team, right? I've learned more from my court clerk than I've learned from anyone. And the important thing is, you need to understand what works from a mechanical standpoint to help matriculate the cases through, but make sure that folks have access to justice, fair and reasonable amount to be heard, and that their rights are protected. That's your job. So I would approach it more of a managerial, if you will, standpoint by understanding how to prioritize matters and how to work with my staff, right, to help move this matter along so that we have a smooth and even and efficient progression of the docket on a day-by-day basis as much as we possibly can with the limited resources that we have. Thank you. Great question. I currently, right now, I'm a lawyer, and I have my own practice, and I have dozens of cases that I have to manage concurrently. I have to deal with the timing of all the cases. I have to deal with the discovery of all the cases. I have to deal with the motions of all the cases. And I've been doing that for 20 years since I've been in practice, handling hundreds of cases. And they've all been varied. They have not been the same. They've been cases involving exposure. They've been cases involving children who were molested by their teachers. They've been cases involving, I have 6,500 plaintiffs right now that I represent in San Francisco in a case against Tetra Tech and Lennar Corporation. I've represented thousands of people in Richmond when the Chevron refinery fire happened. I've had to manage massive cases with tons of plaintiffs, and I've had to do it all concurrently, all at the same time, and they've been varied. I've gone to trial in 13 different jurisdictions, and I have been able to find ways to win those trials, even in jurisdictions I didn't know. But all that has taught me what effective judges do. I understand how it is to be effective. I also am a judge pro tem. I've been a judge pro tem in Department 105 in Wiley Emanuel Courthouse and in Department 519 down in Hayward, and I've had the small claims calendar. And I am able to get through efficiently with that small claims calendar. Every time I'm in there, I get through the entire calendar because I have help of the resources that are there, and because I can go in and out of cases of vastly different subject matters, because that's what my life is. I may work on a case involving exposure to radioactive waste on one day, and another case that's involving a in-custody death or a person who's been incarcerated wrongfully. I've handled all of these different subject areas all at the same time, and that will prepare me for the type of caseload that I will have as a Superior Court judge, because they won't be the same type of cases. I didn't spend my life working for corporations. I spent my life working for people. Thank you.
All right, we have 1 minute closing.
Thank you. You know, the job of a Superior Court judge is measured not by how many trials you've had, how many contracts you've closed, how many deals you've closed. It's measured by how effectively you're able to administer justice and how effectively you're able to protect the rights of those who appear in front of you. And the way you gauge that, at least as a pro tem, is how often you've done it, how long you've done it, and how often those who supervise you, presiding judges, have observed you and determined whether or not you have the judicial temperament and ability to handle it. I'm fortunate that I've had 3 presiding judges who endorse me. I'm fortunate that I've had judges who've actually physically observed me in the courtroom. That's what matters, not how many cases you've had, not many deals you've closed, but how you actually do the job consistently over years. I have that experience. If you check my website, www.johnsonforjudge2026, you'll see what they have to say, and don't take my word for it. Look and see what they have to say in real time. That's how you determine who can do the job. Thank you.
I think it's very important to know that a judge has tried a case to a jury, because that's what judges have to preside over. And if you haven't tried a case to jury, the question is, how can you be an effective judge? I've tried cases to juries all over the country, not just in California, throughout California, federal courts and state courts. I've tried cases in Alameda County to judges. I've gotten fee awards from judges who claimed, who had very good things to say about my work. But I've also been a judge pro tem. I've also been before a courtroom of people having to explain what the law means, and that's what I do for my clients. I have been endorsed by SEIU 1021 and the Alameda Labor Council. Why? Because my background is in representing people, helping people get justice, and right now, that's what we need our judges to do. We need them to see all cases through the lens of people, not corporations. We need them to be able to be a judge that stands for compassion, for equity, and for equality. And that's what I will do as a judge. I will represent the people, because I'm an attorney for the people. I will be a judge for the people. And if you've got my literature, you can see that's exactly what it says, judge for the people. And that's what I hope to bring to Alameda County, and that's what Alameda County needs. Thank you.
All right, thank you both. Thank you. Thank you. All right, thank you so much to Cabral Bonner and Michael Johnson running for Superior Court Judge, office number 13. And now we are going to turn it over to the 2 candidates running for Superior Court Judge, office number 19, Selia Warren and Patricia Miles. Please join us on stage. Glad to see some ladies on the bench. All right, so like them, we'll have a very similar format. Maybe even the same questions. We'll have a 2-minute introduction. Jen is keeping time, so keep an eye on her. And then we'll do 2 questions and minute 30 seconds to answer, and then a 1-minute close. I'll start with you.
Good evening. Thank you for coming. Thank you for having me and allowing me to introduce myself to you all. I'm not a politician. My name is Patricia Miles, and I'm currently an administrative law judge for the state of California. At the state, I handle very complex, somewhat technical matters involving disputes of utilities, related to utilities that we regulate. Being an administrative law judge is quite different than being an Alameda County Superior Court judge, obviously. Immediately prior to becoming a judge for the state, I worked for several years at the California Public Employee Retirement System as a senior litigation counsel. And there, I was in court every day on behalf of the state, either in administrative tribunals, in Superior Court, or in appellate courts. In other words, I've been a public servant for the people of California for more than 20 years. You might want to know, why would a judge for the state of California now want to be a judge at Alameda County Superior Court? Well, My roots as a young lawyer for years were here in Alameda County. After law school, I came to work in the city of Oakland, in my own practice, and for small and larger law firms, handling matters for City of Oakland, County of Alameda Retirement System, Berkeley Unified School District, East Bay MUD, Association of Bay Area Governments, and many others. Okay. If you elect me to Superior Court, the experiences I've gained as a judge will be put to use more directly for the citizens of Alameda County. Because of the technical matters that I handle now, these sometimes take 18 months to several years. It will be very rewarding to work for citizens here in Alameda County and to have a more immediate direct impact. Obviously, as a judge, I have the skills, I examine evidence, I listen to arguments that attorneys make in front of me on a regular basis, I weigh the evidence and the facts against statutes and case law, and I have to make a decision about the appropriate outcome. If you elect me, I'll treat people who appear before me fairly, I'll give them a fair hearing, and I'll use the skills on the state level, on the local level. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Selia Warren, and I am running for Alameda County Superior Court Judge, seat 19. I am running because I believe deeply in public service.
I'm sorry, can you speak up? I'm hard of
Sure, I'm so sorry. Yes, I believe deeply in public service, in the rule of law, and I understand the essential role that courts play for working families. I have been an attorney for more than 20 years, and I have served the city of Oakland for more than a decade as a city attorney. And it has been my honor to do so, but the city attorney's office is in good hands, and I am ready to extend my public service to the broader community. I don't come from attorneys or fancy people. I am a working class kid. I'm first generation college. My parents were mail carriers. I attended UC Berkeley for undergrad and the University of Michigan for law school, where I was on the law review. I am also a City of Alameda resident, so I am proud to be here before the Alameda Democratic Club. I have served the City of Oakland for more than a decade as a city attorney, and I've been a civil litigator for more than 20 years. But I committed after 10 years in private practice to public service. And since 2015, I have been with the City of Oakland, where I have advised and litigated in trial courts and appellate courts on every type of issue that a city sees, from civil rights to environmental matters, land use, CEQA, administrative writs, election matters, and ballot measures, and countless other things. It would be my honor to serve on the Alameda County Superior Bench. I understand deeply the experience of working people and how important it is that they are treated fairly and equitably when they are in court. So many people are in court without attorneys. So it's not just managing complex civil rights matters, complex contracts matters. It's also just regular people there when their families are falling apart in family court. I would be honored to have your support, and I thank you for your time.
Hi, thank you so much, both of you, for coming. You also have made it difficult for me to decide who I'm going to vote for, so thank you for that. I appreciate how clearly qualified you both are for the role, and I'm excited for whomever it is who wins the election. My question to you has to do with your judicial philosophy and your dreams for what this job will be like. I'm curious what you'd like to share with us about your judicial philosophy as you enter into this position, or what your dream is for what it's like to come into your courtroom, no matter who you are. Either one. Thank you.
It's like you're a true influencer. Sure. Thank you so much for that question. For me, I think it's important that we center working people, regular people in the courtroom. There are so many people, as I mentioned earlier, that don't even have attorneys, that are self-represented, and it's really important that you make sure that they are able to have their cases heard and that they're treated fairly and with dignity and with the respect that they deserve. At times you can see where their opposing counsel might be really overbearing and really taking over, and I think as a judge you're in a unique position to really set the tone and make sure that it's even and it's fair and that people are treated fairly in the courtroom. And so my dream would be a courtroom where people feel like they've been treated fairly, that they've been heard, that their issues have been resolved in a manner that's consistent with the law, but that they had overall a fair and impartial experience.
I take my role as an attorney, which I was for most of the time, more than 20 years, very seriously. And when I represented, especially the public employee retirement system, there were also often people there who didn't have attorneys, who were concerned about their health benefits or their pension benefits. Even then, as a lawyer, I made sure they understood the process, understood what could happen, and I'm very proud of the fact that I've always been a person who finds a way to compromise. There are always two sides to every story, and one of the important skills that I've always had, probably because I have 3 older brothers, 3 younger sisters, I've always had a way of finding a way to find a compromise between people who are opposed. As a judge, I take the Constitution very seriously, and I understand that my role as a judge is to make sure that everyone who comes before me has due process and the protections of both the United States and California constitutions. Yes, I will make sure that everyone, as I do now, that enters my courtroom feels heard, understands the process, feels that I'm fair, I treat them with compassion, and I have empathy for them.
Hello. With ICE coming into U.S. cities, and we've seen it in multiple cities, including for a small bit ours, what do you feel the role is of the Superior Court judge to protect U.S. citizens' constitutional rights?
I feel that the role of any judge in any court is to protect and interpret the Constitution with the objective of protecting the rights of not just citizens, but all individuals in the public. One of the prior commenters talked about people being kidnapped off the streets. That's happening. I am involved with judges all around the country, and judges have told me that they've seen people pulled out of their running cars and vehicles and left those vehicles in the middle of the street. As a Superior Court judge, we don't ordinarily directly handle immigration cases. Those are usually handled by administrative law judges in immigration courts. But the circumstances that we've witnessed require all of us as citizens, and certainly those of us who are lawyers and judges, to pay attention to whatever we see that doesn't comport with what we know to be what America is supposed to stand for and what the Constitution protects. So, as a Superior Court judge, when someone comes before me, irrespective of what their citizenship is, I'll make sure that they feel comfortable to be open and honest about what it is they're seeking from me. They'll make sure that I hear them and understand them, and I'll treat them with compassion. I'll leave it at that, because with ICE.
Thank you for that question. I think 2 things. One, I'm very proud to be part of the City of Oakland team of attorneys that are navigating and advising on trial and strategy dealing with the constant federal threats coming from this administration. It is real, it is ongoing, it is daily, and just navigating that for the city of Oakland has become a bigger part of my job than I'd like it to be honest. As a judge, I think we're limited in what we can do, but there are things that we can do. For example, you can make sure that staff is trained to understand what our rights are with respect to ICE entering the courtroom. There are ways to show resistance without being obvious about it. For example, our presiding judge, as I understand it, has issued a policy that impacts the ability of officers other than the sheriff to be armed in the courtroom. Now, that didn't specifically name any organization, but it does have the impact of creating additional safety by ensuring that only our sheriff who should be there that is armed and not other organizations. And so there are things like that. I think there's ways to be creative without outright stepping into areas that are, as my friend on the other side noted, are not really for us as Superior Court judges. Sure. I am so honored to be running this campaign and to be asking to be voted in to a seat on the Superior Court bench. I am broadly supported and I'm deeply honored by that support in the community. I have judges and attorneys. I have all 5 of the supervisors, the county supervisors. I have labor organizations, including SEIU, the Alameda Labor Council, IFPTE Local 21, and more. I have Senator Jesse Arreguin. I am really, really honored by the support that I've been able to amass, which is a testament to my temperament, to my experience, and to my readiness to sit on the bench. I would be honored to have your support as well, and I'm here for questions after this and after today. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Well, this is my first opportunity to speak to the public in this way, and it means a great deal to me. I've had opportunities to speak to voters in smaller settings, living rooms, and things like that. But I want to say that I also take very seriously the opportunity to serve on the Alameda County Superior Court. I got into the race a little bit later than my opponent, and I also have many endorsements, which you'll see if you scan the QR code on my card. I want to say that as a parent, I've always been involved in my community. I'm that parent who's involved on the PTA, the site council, the teams, etc. I'm a member of the public who cares about how our public operates, how our community operates. And as a judge, I'll carry that into the courtroom. Yes, I have judicial experience, but more importantly, I have community experience that forms the conscience, that forms how I'll handle individuals like you who may appear before me. And I thank you for considering voting for me for this important role.
So it is a lot of time, money, sacrifice, not just to serve, but to run for office. So let's please give a huge round of applause for all the candidates who put their name forth and are here today. Thank you all. And thank you all for coming. At this time, we're going to say thank you and goodbye. And members are welcome to stay, talk a little bit about what we heard here today. Digital ballots will be sent to eligible members. Those are people who have attended one meeting since March of last year and paid their 2026 dues, which you can do at the table here with Magali. So thank you.